A very good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Brilliance of Our Talk. My name is Kim Pong, and I am the CEO of Strength Asia. It's really wonderful to be seeing different ones of you, and many of you are very familiar faces. So thank you for coming back. Thank you, for the support. I'm just really extremely grateful. My team and I are, Dina Heng, Dina Ayub, Malika, Karisun, the five of us, when we are just, producing these talks here, we couldn't imagine that we started this way back in the April, I think, of 2020, when the COVID lockdown happened in Singapore, and all of a sudden we realized that we are totally out of contact with our customers, and we begin to ask ourselves a simple question. Gosh, how do we connect with our customers? How do we get into the conversations again? And then I think that was when we began our first ever talk on social media, which is on YouTube, on Facebook, on Zoom, right? And then we knew next to nothing about productions and all that. But gosh, how far have we come? And I'm strong. I'm a strong believer, right, that we never ever stop learning. That I think who we are at our very moment is the very best of who we are. But the truth is this, right? We can actually get a whole lot better. So let me just get started, on our talk today. But very quickly, for those of you that may not know me, my name is Kim Pong, and I am the CEO of Strength Asia. And in Strength Asia, we are a coaching and training company, and we focus on really helping organizations build a culture of engagement in their teams, in their leadership. And by that, what we mean is how do we get leaders and managers and executives to become a whole lot more influential and impactful, to be more energized and to be more satisfied in their work and in their relationships with one another. And one of the very passionate topics that I really, really, embrace and adore and love and all that, I'm very sure you can tell my passion in this, and that is really in the conversations that we have with one another. And that's the reason why we are here today, to talk about the brilliance of our talk. So let me just get started on this talk here. We're going to keep going until about 1 p.m. today. Now, in the meantime, if you have any questions around what I'm sharing, go ahead and use the chat box to respond to me. And I just realized that my chat box is not open. Okay, I've just done that. So go ahead and use the chat box and plunk in any insights or any questions. So by the end of what I'm done, if there are any questions, I will address that quickly so that we can save some time around the corner. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let us get started. The brilliance of our talk. Well, this is me, ladies and gentlemen, right? And this is my wife. This is my children. These are my parents, and these are my colleagues. And finally, the last group, these are my friends. Now, these are the relationships in my life that really make my life a whole lot more enjoyable, a whole lot more meaningful, a whole lot more fruitful. And, absolutely through all these relationships, right, through my wife, my children, my parents, my colleagues, and my friends, I definitely feel loved and noticed and included. And sometimes, right, it is this relationship that makes my life bearable in an otherwise, unbearable world itself. And I realized that there can only be, so many circles in my life, because if I try to cramp, a whole lot more circles into my life here, these circles are going to be so small that they're going to be a lot more insignificantly, less meaningful. So I realized that there is a finite number of circles in my life, and what am I going to do about really raising the quality of these relationships here? And I found something really, really interesting, that the quality of my life is really found in the quality of these relationships. And the quality of these relationships is found in the quality of my talk with them. In other words, it is the quality of my conversations that dictates the quality of my relationships, and in turn, the qualities of my life. I'm not sure whether you would agree with me on that, but at least this is what I've discovered, over the years of interacting, with these people, in my intimate circles here. And it's through the way that of this talk and through these conversations that people actually see three very distinct qualities about me, about Kim Pong, right? Over and over again, right? There's no let up on how they see me, on how they experience me, But it's through these three simple qualities that they recognizes me and they see me over and over again. And these three qualities are as follows. They see the quality of my character, they see the quality of my ideas, and they see the quality of my relationships. Through my talk, they see all these three different qualities here. And let me just talk a little bit about that, right? So in my conversations with all these different levels of relationship, they see my character. They see my authenticity. They see, the real person, behind the conversation. And very often, if people can detect the authentic person in me, it doesn't matter whether I'm, they agree with me or disagree with me. That's not the point, right? But if they actually see the authentic self, they see the realness in me, very often the quality of relationship is going to be a whole lot better. The second quality is really in the quality of my ideas, right? So when they are talking with me, they're asking themselves the question, gosh, is what Kim Pong saying, is the content of Kim Pong's conversation reliable? Are these some things that he really know what he's talking about? Is he, humble enough to clarify or to find out things that he doesn't know? That is in the quality of our ideas. And the last quality about me is in the quality of my relationship with them. So when people look at me, right, they're going to be asking themselves, gosh, what is Kim Pong thinking about, when he is relating to us, right? Is he just caring for himself, or is he just caring for what he thinks, what he wants to say, or what he wants to do, right? At the end of the day, it is about all these three qualities, right? The character, the ideas of relationships. And if you think about it, all this, people sees them in what do you call it? People sees them, through our talk. Now, as I was doing some research for this, sharing here today, I came across a really, really interesting quote by a gentleman by the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, for those of you that follows him, you know who he is, right? So Neil deGrasse Tyson is an American astrophysicist. He's a planetary scientist. He's an author. He's a science communicator, right? And this is what he said. He says, one of the challenges of this world is knowing enough about a subject to think that you are right, but not enough about the subject to know that you are wrong. Now, when I first read this quote, ladies and gentlemen, I absolutely love this quote here, right? I absolutely loved it. And the reason for that is because, this quote is not, it's about managing the tensions of being right and at the same time managing the tensions of being wrong. It is about being certain and yet being uncertain. It is about being confident and at the same time being vulnerable. And one of the key things that I realized in the quality of all my relationships, lies in my ability to manage these tensions well. It doesn't matter, which one I gravitate to, but how do I manage these tensions? How do I manage these conflicts here? And how can I be in a state of mind and in the ability of control, right? To be certain and yet uncertain, to be confident and yet vulnerable, to know that I'm right and yet be open to the possibility that I could be wrong. Now, this ability to manage these tensions has enabled me to be sure-footed, to be confident, to know what I'm doing. But at the same time, it allows me to stay open, to learn, to be teachable, to grow, and to evolve. And this tension, ladies and gentlemen, is seen and experienced in the way I talk. And people around me sees that and experience that every day. Because how I talk has a direct impact on the quality of all my relationships. So let me just move on to one simple question. I would love an answer from you, but actually, no, you don't need to tell me the answer because it's a little bit sensitive, right, to the question I'm asking. But my question is this, right? How old are you today? Right? So how old are you today? I think some of us probably are in our teens, maybe some in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? So it doesn't matter how old you are. Today, by the time it comes October of this year, right? I'll be 58 years old, right? So essentially, if you're 25 years old, if you're 36 years old, you're 42 years old, or you're 58 years old, then essentially it simply means this, right? This is how long you've been practicing your talk. This is how long, right, you have been learning, how to talk the way you're talking. You have spent the last 25 years, 32 years, 45 years, 58 years perfecting the way you talk. And how you talk, right? How I talk, it is something habitual. It is something that people sees all the time. We don't really change how we talk all the time, but that talk has largely served you and I very well most of this time. And the way you and I talk, well, that is our brilliance. That is what people sees in you. That's what people sees in me. That's how people know you to be who you are. When they hear that sound of your voice, when they hear the way you talk, they say, oh my gosh, I know that's Alan coming around the corner. I know that's Kim Pong. I know that's Jenny. I know that's whatever, right? Why is that? Because our talk is perception. How we talk is being perceived by people in very specific, unique ways. And the second thing about talk is this, right? Talk is action, right? The way we talk will create a response from other people. The way we do not talk also create a different response from people. And that's why I love this phrase here, right? That was coined by Kevin Eyre, the creator of Soundwave, that says, talk is action. Talk is action, I'm sorry. It creates a response from others. Our talk can be empty and can be a monologue, right? But at the same time, our talk can become a dialogue of meaningful connections, of purpose, and of action. And I like this description of talk, which I heard, in my interaction with Kevin Eyre from Soundwave, and he says talk is fictive. In other words, talk has the power to change something from imagination into something great, life-changing, and revolutionary. And the whole idea of talk is really simple here. Talk is the most persistent and repeated behavior in all of us. So why is it that we are not spending time learning how to talk better? Well, today is probably one of those times for you to pause and ask yourself, gosh, how do I talk? And how is this impacting people around me? And how can I become better in what I'm doing? And talk is so important. And I just want to share with you, by the way, this is Nine Voices, a book that just recently was written by Kevin Eyre from Soundwave. So if you're interested in this book here, go ahead and go to the website and Soundwave. And I think my colleague will give you a link. By the way, I think for a limited time period, this book is being offered for free as a free download. So do not wait before the time runs out. Go ahead and click on the link in the chat box and download the book, right? By the way, this is what Kevin Eyre says about talk, right? And I love that. He says this: talk is not something that we do on the side or in addition to our behavior. Talk is integral to it. Talk is integral to our behavior because everything is conversation. Leadership is conversation. Relationship is conversation. Culture is conversation. The leaders you admire, the relationships that you love, the culture that you thoroughly enjoy in, there is a very high element of quality conversations in those relationships, isn't it? If you don't like a particular leader, you don't like a particular relationship, you don't like a particular culture, it is very likely that it's either bad conversations that's going on, or there's no conversations that's going on, or at most they are just transactional conversations. Everything is conversation. And the idea of this whole that everything is conversation boils down to the fact that it does have an impact on all our relationships here. Like I mentioned just now, the way we talk has been serving us really, really well. It served me well for that matter, but I think sometimes it does give me some trouble and pain here, right? So the idea here is this, how can I talk better? And the way to do it really is this, right? It is not about dismantling my talk, but it is about equipping my talk. So it's not about changing everything the way I'm talking. It's not about changing the way I interact with people all the time, because largely that is who we are. That's our identity, is it? It's not about dismantling who we are, but really it's about learning how to equip who we already are to make what we do even way, way better. Why is that? Because the idea is this: the brilliance is in you, and the brilliance starts with you. The brilliance is in you, and the brilliance starts with you. The brilliance is in the way we've been perfecting over the last 25 years, 35 years, 42 years, 58 years in learning how to talk the way we have been. Like I mentioned to you just now, the way we talk has largely served us really, really well. But the question for you and I is just, can we do it even better? So how do we do this? Well, this is how we can do this, right? Soundwave. What is Soundwave? Well, Soundwave, as I mentioned, you guys have heard about it for a while now. It is a very, very simple assessment from the UK, created by Kevin Eyre, that really does this for everyone here, right? So Soundwave has given me the ability to describe the brilliance of my talk, the brilliance of my voices. And my way of conversations, my way of talk, I often talk, with inquire, I often talk with probe, and I often talk with advocate. Now, this is, through these three voices, right, of inquire, probe, and advocate. These are my preferred voices. These are the voices that I use constantly all the time, even without thinking, right? And this is how I see and know myself. And this is how I begin to realize, my gosh, this is who I am. And this is how I can really begin to fall in love with my own identity here, right? Through the way I talk. And at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, this is how people recognize and see me, right? This is how they experience me. So, for example, right, people recognize and see me, right, through my inquire, and then they see a lot of curiosity or possibilities in my behavior here. When they look at, say, for example, my probing voice, very often they see Kim Pong, right, in the quest for insights, and they see my advocate, which is my yearning for purpose. This is how people around me, my wife, my colleagues, my friends, my children, my parents, right? This is how they see and know Kim Pong. And these voices, like I said, have served me well, but occasionally it does bring me some pain and trouble. So the question is this, right? It is not about dismantling these voices, but it's about equipping these voices so that we can talk better, so that the quality of a relationship can be a whole lot better. Now, because of time, I'm just gonna share three simple ideas, right, on how we can really embrace the way we talk, and essentially learn about how do we equip our talk with some simple techniques that's going to allow us to be more aware of how we talk, to be more influential, to be more impactful in our conversations with people around us here. So the first one really is quite interesting. So let me just get back to the screen share here. The first one is this, right? We do not drive a car in a single gear. Now, for those of us who are as old as I am, you will remember what a stick shift is, right? So a stick shift is a manual car where you drive, not automatic. When you drive, you're actually shifting the gears here, right? And the truth is this, if you're driving a stick shift, you will realize that you never, ever drive in a single gear. That means if you put onto gear one, right, you never drive on a single gear. You'll get you from point A to point B eventually, but if you were to do that, it would utterly destroy your car, right? Because the car is not meant to move on a single gear. Same thing, right? With the way we have conversations with people. It is not meant to be conducted in a single fashion, in a single gear here. So one of the benefits of really knowing my voices of inquire, probe, and advocate is to realize, my gosh, these three voices have served me really, really well. These are my gears, right? That I'm used to in activating, in manipulating to use it in conversations around me. But I do not need to just rely on these three voices. I can actually have more than three voices. What other gears can I use? So one of the very interesting ideas, right, and this is my story here. Very often I'm going on inquire, probe, and advocate. And one of the things about these voices is that they have served me largely well. People find me very inspirational. People find me very curious. People find me very insightful, right? But because I constantly rely on these three voices, what sometimes it makes me become is that I become extremely pushy. I become extremely, interrogative. I become extremely, preachy for that matter, long-winded. And sometimes people feel like, hey, my gosh, Kim Pong, you're kind of pushing people away with the way you talk. Well, the idea here is not to discard the way I talk, but the idea here is to shift gears into another voice to support these three voices here. And within the sound wave repertoire, one of the voices I've begun to use very actively is the voice of articulate, right? The articulate allows me to make people feel that they're being heard, they're being understood. So, back to the same idea here. We do not drive a car in a single gear. We can actually shift our gears and drive differently. For me, in this instance here, it is not just inquire, probe, and advocate, but by inserting a new voice called articulate to complement the three voices that I have. The second idea is this. The second idea is, a credit card machine here. Now, for those of you who again are, way back in the 80s, right, when you're using your credit card, and this is when the credit card was beginning to shift, from the magnetic strip into, a chip reading. So essentially in this picture here, right, you are actually inserting the card into the machine and, for the machine to read the card details, right? Now, what happens is this: when the card is transacting, right, and when it is done, in order for the card, so the machine actually is designed to remind the customers to take out the card when it is done, right? And back then in the good old days, the way the card reminds you is to create this really irritating, harsh sound, right? And that's why the guy is covering his ears, right? Is to make this irritating, harsh sound of da 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 da, right? So when you hear that sound, my gosh, then you're reminded, oh my gosh, my card is still in the card reader. Let's take it out, right? Now imagine you're the cashier and you are listening to that blaring, jarring sound, the entire day. My gosh, by the end of the day, you're gonna go crazy with that sound, isn't it? So the question, that I think, the credit card companies, or at least the credit card payment companies, begin to ask themselves the question was this, right? And the question was this: can we do the same thing with a different sound? Can we remind people that, hey, the transaction is over, it's time to take out your card, but with a different sound, a sound that is, more gentler, but it has a certain urgency in it. And that's exactly what they do. A company by the name of Clover, and they are involved in the credit card payment services. They hired a sound engineer to redesign the sound. So, today the sound is no longer right? But today the sound is a very gentle, pulsating, and urgent sound. I can't say it to you, but it sounds something like, right? It's a very, very simple idea here. And when people hear the sound, they realize, oh my gosh, this is what it is. And they begin to take out the card and off they go. But at the same time, the person that is at the cashier, his well-being is a whole lot better. He feels a whole lot better because he doesn't have to do that, right? He doesn't have to face that jarring music all the time. And this is exactly, same thing with our voices here. Can we say things differently to achieve the same outcome? So instead of telling people what to do, can we begin to suggest or to ask? Instead of shouting into people's ears to move or to comply, can we be more strategic in the way we have conversations with people so that people feels respected when we tell them, so that people actually feels recognized, and feel cared for when we are trying to help them? So remember the three voices. What other voices can I use, or how can I use those three voices that I have to make it sound better, uh, felt differently for the same outcome here? Can we do the same thing with a different sound? And last but not least, and this is really, really, really fun for me to share this with you. This is the third way in which we can actually change the way we talk in order, right, to have more quality conversations here. So let me just share with you the screen. And there's this simple idea called 4-chord songs. Do you know that many songs in the world are actually composed and sung around 4 simple musical chords here? So let me just show it to you for about a minute or so, and then after that, I'll talk a little bit about this, right? So here we go.
Recognize this?
Yeah, that's Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
And the cast of Glee. Yeah, there's a few more songs with the same chords. Check it out. My life is brilliant. My love is pure. I saw an angel. Of that I'm sure. People kill and people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? Won't you turn the other cheek? Forever young, I wanna be forever young. I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm your lipstick stains on the front lobe of my left side brains. I knew I wouldn't forget you if I could. Then I would. I'd go wherever you will go. Can you feel the love tonight? Nobody wants to see us together, but it don't matter, no. 'Cause I got
country road, take me home to the place where I belong.
I'm your biggest fan of.
All right, so we are back here, right? So, how many of you actually are surprised to hear that, right? That all these songs are all sung with the same 4 chords here. Now it blows your mind,
This
isn't it?
comment from
And
Jonathan in chat.
yeah, absolutely right. So Jonathan, and if you're into music, that four chords are really powerful chords, right? It is I mean, for those that knows music, it'd be the 1, 5, 6, and 4, progressions here. And the whole idea, right, when you talk about music, four simple chords can give you so many different genres, different moods, different feelings here. So the idea is this, right? With three voices, right? My inquirer, my probe, my advocate, it should actually be able to help me create different experiences for people, be able to create different moods for people. And if I am unable to do that, it is not because those voices are no good, because all voices are good. It's a simple case of me not recognizing and knowing how to use the power of my voices to create the mood, the genre, the atmosphere, the experience, and the outcomes that I want. So these are just three very simple ways, right, of just reimagining our voices and how we can change the way we talk. And if you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't really require too much effort from you and me, because at the end of the day, it's really about a simple thing here. It's really about just shifting the dialogue, right, so as to shift the culture or shift the outcome that we want, right? It's as simple as like, okay, how do I talk differently through the three voices? Do I need to pay more attention to what people are doing before I use the voices? Or do I just need to include one other voices into my repertoire of three here? The idea is a simple one. It's not about dismantling the way we talk, but it's about shifting our dialogue and shifting the culture. So if you resonate with all that I've shared with you in the last, 29 minutes to 30 minutes, and you say, look, and I want to find out about my sound wave, and I want to understand a little bit more about how to use my voices in my conversations to build the quality of relationships at home and at work. Well, this is one thing you can do, right? You can join us for our up and coming workshops. In fact, we got two different workshops that are coming up. One is called the Strength-Based Emotional Intelligence Workshop, which it's got nothing to do with sound wave, but it's something to do with are you able to figure out your motivations, and at the same time, are you able to use EI to describe that, right? The second one is really the power of communication. And this one, we help you figure out what your sound wave is and how you can use this to improve the quality of your relationships, both at home and at work. So if you're keen on this, go ahead, click on the QR code, or actually in the chat box, there are the link boxes for you. So the links that you can click on that will bring you to registration here. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for coming to this session of the Brilliance of Our Talk. It is my great pleasure to be sharing this with you. And once again, this whole production is created by me, by my colleagues Dina Heng, Dina A, Malika, and Karisun here. So with that, I hope to see you guys soon at the workshops or one way or another. And in the meantime, have a great week ahead.
Yep. Sorry, there's actually a question from Jonathan, which is, by voices, is somebody referring to the choice of words or how it's spoken?
Yeah. So Jonathan, by sound wave is not referring to it is referring to the choice of words, obviously. But I think if you think a little bit very quickly on that, sound wave is really about how do you talk through the verbal cluster of asking, suggesting, and telling, right? Do you talk by asking, or do you talk by suggesting, or do you talk by telling all the time, right? You've met friends, of course, of yours that basically, when you see them, they're always telling you what to do since you knew them in primary school all the way to secondary school and all the way to adulthood, isn't it? The way we talk kind of shapes the way our relationships are. So sound wave is referring, to the way you use different repertoire of voices. And within sound wave, there are three clusters of ask, suggest, and tell. And within the ask, suggest, and tell, there are altogether 9 different ways of talking to people: inquire, probe, advocate. So inquire, probe, diagnose, articulate, advise, advocate, critique, correct, and challenge. So go to the website of soundwave.global, Jonathan. You will be able to find out a lot more details on the specifics of sound wave here. So with that, I think that's all there is to questions. I want to respect time for everybody here. Once again, thank you for coming. Have a great week. So with that, I'll see everybody soon, either at the workshops or some other place somewhere. So thank you, everybody. Take care and bye-bye.
Think I'd try this a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks that I know. I'm getting tired of
talking.